Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Hipsters podcast, where I interview founders and co founders, entrepreneurs and artists, executives and stay at home hipsters in crypto and blockchain around the world. And I have an amazing podcast for you today. Let's get to it. And today I have a little bit of a change of pace. We're going to talk about deep tech. I have Sonny Vu, who is the CEO of Arevo. Welcome, Sonny.
Good to be here. Thanks, Jamil.
You're welcome. So, first question to kick things off is, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Yeah, I can tell you, I've really just been an entrepreneur all my life. Although originally trained as a mathematician and then a linguist. So, America is the American dream. You can do whatever, right? So the fact that a linguist can start a company, do high-tech startups. So absolutely, yeah, it's a logical background. But no, has it been useful?
How does a linguist get into deep tech?
Well, I think it's really comes from a sense of curiosity that I got from my parents, and what is deep tech? It's really about working with companies with technologies that was founded from some sort of scientific or engineering breakthrough, and to really evaluate a lot of these opportunities. You've just got to learn a lot. So that sense of curiosity goes a long ways.
It does. It does. I believe you. I ask questions every day. So, first question is, what is Arevo all about, including your recent initiatives and accomplishments?
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and about after our last exit in 2015, when we sold Misfit to FOSL Group, we've been investing. We thought we'd try out the investing thing, so we've invested out of our small family office for the last 6 years or so, and wanted to work on things that had some sort of promise of vertical progress of technology. Some like really 0 to 1 kind of things, not 1 to 10 things necessarily, but hopefully they could be 0 to 10 as well. And so we looked into a number of areas. We're pretty early in food and various energy things, and new materials was something that I'd always been interested in. Things that could really, be transformative for a lot of industries, not just money shuffling. And so we ran across Arevo as a company that was pretty interesting because it basically automates the production of carbon fiber composite products. So carbon fiber composites are things that is a material that is very light and very strong. And so usually, for a long time, it was in the domain of fancy cars and airplanes. And in recent years, well, actually, they've been around for a couple decades now, for really nice bikes. And so, but it's just really expensive, these products, and not super accessible. And in part, it used to be because of the materials cost itself, but over time, it's really been because of the cost of processing these materials, of actually shaping these things into the kind of products that you want. And so we use robots, lasers, software to automatically do that, and thereby driving down the cost, increasing the speed of making these things. And so Arevo is an advanced manufacturing technology company that automates making these carbon fiber composite things. And so I think we're most known for our a bike that we made, the Superstrata bike. And that is a full carbon fiber bike that we basically 3D printed. And they're all custom made. So we would actually take your height, your weight, your wingspan, how what your inseam is, all that, and then we would generate a frame based on your biometrics as well as your riding style, because some people want a relaxed style, some people want an aggressive style, and the frame shape is actually generated just for you. So each one is actually custom 3D printed. Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun to do that.
Do you make children's bikes at all?
I'm sorry?
Do you make children's bikes at all? Bikes for
We
children?
do, actually. We do. We've got 2 young kids ourselves, 6 and 4. And so we actually partnered with Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince, and so we make the Petit Prince, the Little Prince children's bike, carbon fiber. I mean, it's kind of a pretty expensive kids bike. Like our products are not affordable in the common sense of the term, but they're a very good value for what you get.
My son's turning 9 in January, so I might have to buy a bike from you. I wanted to find out the same thing about you. Have 2 other companies. One's called Impact Biosystems, and one's called Alabaster. I want to find out what those also do.
Sure. So Impact Biosystems is a smart muscle recovery technology company. So we make a product that the first full feedback massage system in the world. So it's so typical massagers, those percussive massage guns that you see all over the internet these days, they basically just hit you, and it can feel good, but it doesn't really, there's not much smartness around that. The product that Impact makes called the PACT system actually is a 2-part system. One is a scanner that actually will detect your muscle readiness levels. So it'll detect basically how stiff your muscles are. And then the massage gun actually, so it communicates through the app. Massage gun will actually show you where you need to massage and for how long, and customize your massage. So it's kind of like having your own personal masseuse, who can feel the knots in your body and press more where you need more work done, and less where and can move on from the parts where you don't need work done. So it's kind of like having a masseuse at home. There's a lot of these workout from home products these days. We just ordered a Hydro and a Peloton, but there's nothing to help you recover from them, other than good old-fashioned sleep. But sometimes to really maximize the speed of your recovery, the vision was to have a product that can be like having your own masseuse at home. So that's Impact Biosystems. We're having a lot of fun. We just launched the product literally like a couple weeks ago. So it was more of a pre-launch, so you can like pre-order the products. And but yeah, so the system, part of it also is that it has it's very interactive. So there's videos and an app that shows you what to do. Because a lot of times you have these massage guns, you don't actually know what to do. That's the main problem. And so there's the feedback part, and then there's the interactive aspect of the product. So that's Impact, and we're definitely having a lot of fun there, coming up with fulfilling this vision that we've had for smart muscle recovery, so you can recover faster. And then Alabaster, you mentioned about that. That's our family office that focuses on deep tech investments. And so the idea is to invest in founders who have some sort of a solution that has a positive planet level impact. So about 70% of what we do is climate change reversal deep tech. So whether it's new materials or energy or food production processes that is cleaner, faster, cheaper, that kind of thing.
So let's talk about it. You said launch. You recently launched PACT, right? What is that all about?
Yeah, so we launched the product on a pre-order basis, so that people can go and pre-order the product. It'll be shipping next year, and in the first half of next year. And but yeah, so that was launched just a couple of weeks ago. The idea was to bring something fresh to the fairly crowded, but I would say kind of uninteresting percussive massage space, so that there's something that actually can understand your body, track your muscle health, and then respond accordingly. So a much smarter, much more intuitive, much more interactive massage therapy kind of product.
Awesome. So you mentioned the environment, you mentioned carbon footprint. So let's talk about that. Let's start with continuous carbon fiber polymers, right?
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
why are they important? How are they used across industries to improve performance and efficiencies? What's that all about?
sure. The first, let's talk about the climate thing. Look, if climate change deniers are right, then we will have wasted a bunch of time learning cool physics and chemistry, making things more efficient, and hopefully making some money along the way. If they are wrong, and we are in fact in a climate change crisis, then we have a huge problem on our hands, and we basically have, I don't know, hopefully a generation of science to fix it, and a generation of science and policy and whatever it takes to change our ways and to have an Earth that is habitable for our kids and grandkids. So that's kind of the thinking behind Alabaster and why we're interested in climate related stuff. We are not into climate activism, alarmism. We want to be smart about it and work on things that may not necessarily be all that sexy, but have a high impact. So, like for example, we're quite involved with air conditioning, for example. HVAC. That's a huge, one of the largest consumers of energy, largest carbon footprint creators. It's one of the industries that have the largest carbon footprints in the world, and hardly anyone talks about it. So we'll work on stuff like that. Solar, electric vehicles, all that stuff gets plenty of attention, and it's not always a rosy picture, by the way. We have to be careful about that. As far as carbon fibers related concerned, and what we're doing with Arevo, it's the thesis is pretty clear. If we can make the world lighter, if we can make it cheap to make the world lighter, to make things that are lighter, whether they're vehicles, drones, cars, bicycles, other kinds of urban mobility kind of vehicles, then we win, because um, it's just more efficient payloads, easier to get around, less energy to move things around, that kind of thing. And if along the way we can make things that are really beautiful, that people really want, like Superstrata was designed first. It was, let's make something that's really beautiful, so that it's not just performance, but performance with style. Same thing with Scotsman. We did a scooter. Same thing. We wanted to make a beautiful scooter that would elevate the last mile commuting experience, not just to be a toy, but really a legitimate form of transportation. And so carbon fiber, being able to dramatically increase make it easier to make carbon fiber stuff. That's what Arevo's about, so that we can help people make things lighter. I think could be a huge contribution to the climate crisis.
So now we get into crypto, or not really. We get into the relationship that I see, one of them, between deep tech and crypto. And you talked about deniers versus alarmism. The two biggest denying in technology that I see, one is the value of crypto, two is the environmental concerns. How do you navigate the deniers versus alarmism versus, okay, we have an opportunity here to create economy? How do you navigate between that and figure out how to move forward?
I would just say that I would suggest start with being, I'll steal the term from Hans Rosling's book, Factfulness. I would just start with being factful about things. There are just certain things that are, I don't have a lot of stats on hand, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but not everything is as, are always as they appear. Solar energy sounds great, but boy, I don't know if you know about the kind of people that are used to make them, or the waste that can come from it compared to, so you got to be careful about that kind of thing. I'm a big fan of it. If we can absolutely get free energy from the sun, let's do it. And it's one of the, if you look at there's one of my favorite books, Drawdown. It's one of the top solutions for climate change reversal is concentrated solar and also rooftop solar. Great idea. So, but let's be thoughtful about it. Let's not just assume that there's no other consequences than just I'll just plunk down some money, give Tesla some money, and they'll give me a new roof, and then it probably is a good solution. As far as, like I said, the even working with the assumption that climate change does not exist, there's still lots of benefits, a lot of great technologies that we can develop from this, from working on under the assumption that we are under a climate crisis. As far as crypto goes, I think it's not a field that I have much expertise in, but I think it one area that I find quite interesting is the juncture between crypto and NFTs and gaming. I think that's one of the most fascinating areas to be in. I have a friend of mine who's working in that space, Yatsu, at Animoca. We're working on a project together with a company called Olive X that is bringing together fitness, gaming, and crypto, using gaming as a mechanism to get people active, using crypto as a form of value transfer and preservation, and and I don't want to get into the details of the company, but it's they're doing some pretty amazing things where utilizing these technologies for good, getting people to be healthier. What an awesome way to do it.
So I want to go back to what you said about air conditioning, right, and refrigeration. I do generational books, right? I have a book called Regeneration X. I looked at boomers and Gen X, and before we came along, there was a silent generation. There was the greatest generation, and what the greatest generation did was they built an entire society around refrigeration. They heating, cooling, freon, all that, and they built an entire global economy over that one simple thing, refrigeration. If you were to be able to build an entire global economy around deep tech, what you do, what would it look like?
Oh boy, that's a big question. I'll just talk about some of the areas that I'm aware of. I love new materials because I feel like each epoch of human history has often been characterized by the materials that we're able to have access to. We had the Stone Age and the Bronze Age, Iron Age. I don't know if this is the composite age or not, or the age of metamaterials, but between all of the innovations that are out there in nanomaterials and 2D materials, metamaterials, composites, I mean, there's so many things that we've barely tapped into, and there's been so little funding and attention to this. And yet, this is the kind of thing where we're not just shuffling bits around in the information stream, grabbing a penny here or there, right? But we're actually figuring out new ways it's atoms, not bits now. And so I would start at with first principles, because with new materials you can build things that you might not have thought you could even make. So I would start with that. Second is I would probably work on computational approaches to develop new materials and by the way, new materials doesn't much of this is biological in nature, but computing our way to making new materials so that we can make new things. Totally, we should be doing that. What a great application of AI and machine learning. You hear about AI and machine learning all the time, and I'm like, of course. I mean, that's like saying you use computers. Of course, we're going to use these techniques. They've been around for a long time. We finally have the computational power and storage cheapness to be able to pull it off, and cheapness of access to data. So let's use this for good. Let's use this to come up with new stuff that can make new things, so that we can do things that we couldn't imagine before. Whether that's, a thermoelectric material, so you can make the world's first thermoelectric air conditioner, so you can take out the use of these really harmful gases, or maybe we have at Arevo using computational geometry approaches to compute ways to lay down carbon fiber composites so that you have really efficient and fast lay down of material, so you can make really light and strong things quickly. Or nanomaterials and 2D materials, graphene that have incredible properties for whether it's thermal conduction or I've heard about graphene being used as a super lubricant. So there's a use of that there, not just the electrical properties. And so you can go on with what you can potentially do with new stuff. And so I would love to see, ground up for us to rethink from a first principles basis and use computers to help us. Yeah, well, I'm repeating myself at this point, but that would be where I would start at least.
Awesome. And in order to do that, there's going to be pushback, right? So what do you see, sir, are some of the biggest challenges to overcome in order to get to make that impact?
Well, first of all, deep tech, hard tech, frontier tech, whatever you call it, is I wouldn't say it's derided in the VC world, but everyone, I mean, there's a reason why it's called hard tech, and that's why it often doesn't get funded. Okay, I mean, you're gonna definitely make more money selling cat food online, or your next fintech or enterprise SaaS service, for sure. If you want your 10x return in 5 years time or whatever time frame it is, that's probably the way to go. It's probably not investing in new materials. But if you want to see society and industries transformed for the next decade, for the next generation of science, this is what you need to work on. And I'm kind of torn a lot, because from a financial portfolio perspective, I probably should be investing in your next enterprise SaaS and fintech company, because those are the ones that are going to give you the financial returns. But I'd like to be a part of the future as well. And so I don't know, I kind of split my time and kind of financial attention between the two.
Great. So that leads me to my next question, actually. There are entrepreneurs out there who are not as financially backed as others, right? And what does starting from zero mean to you? And what words of wisdom can you offer people who are starting from zero and not getting the traction yet, but could?
Well, I will say this. If it's your first startup and your first round of financing, kind of like your seed round for your first company, right? Unfortunately, you either have to be rich, connected, or lucky. And because those three factors are, in my humble opinion, limited knowledge base, whatnot, are the dominant factors for success, unfortunately. Now, when I started my first company, I was neither rich nor connected, still kind of not. But for the third, so you kind of have to make your own luck, and so how to get that break. And I think a lot of that is just continuing to push and being very customers oriented, thinking about like what it is that people actually want instead of what you think is cool to make. And I think it's a hard struggle to get out of oneself, and I mean, it's part of why I think people often encourage people to solve problems that they want to solve for themselves. And that's probably good advice much of the time, but not always, because what if you're an outlier case? Like, I love flashlights. That's one of my favorite things. That I actually have a large collection. I have way too many, and I have like 40, and some pretty fancy flashlights. I would love to see an amazing 1 million lumen flashlight. It's probably a bad venture idea to pursue, so there has to be some perspective that one needs to have. But yeah, I would just say one thing though, is if you are going to pursue an entrepreneurial journey, I would just keep in mind the one skill that is probably the most important to harness whether you like it or not, because you're going to end up doing it. And that's sales. That's kind of the only thing that matters, because and it's not just about getting people to give you money for your product. It's, you got to convince the media to talk about you when honestly there's nothing to talk about, or investors to invest in you when they probably shouldn't invest in you because it's super high risk. They're probably going to lose their money with you, not just get their money back. They'll lose their principal. You also got to get partners, convince partners to work with you when they probably shouldn't work with you, because in general, I recommend people not partnering with startups, because you want to marry up, right? And you got to convince people to work for you. Leave that cushy job at Google paying however much money per year for a job that has zero job security, and expected value of a career at a startup is probably significantly less than one at Google or whatever company you're at. And so that skill is something you're going to have to do day in, day out, and over time, more and more as you remain active in a company as a founder.
That's good advice. Yeah, sales. I agree with you. You need to be the sales. You need to be able to do everything, right?
Yeah, because you can always hire people to program or draw design stuff, or come up with fancy marketing slogans. Like you can, all of that can be hired, I think. But in sales, I suppose you can build a sales team as well. But like that's kind of what you end up doing as a founder most of the time, whether you like it or not. I didn't think I thought I'd get to solve math problems and stuff, but that didn't work out.
I'm glad you do the work that you do. And I wouldn't call it luck. I would call it tenacity, resilience, staying in the game no matter what. Those are skills, right?
Tenaciousness, ability to deal with ambiguity, ability to deal with dynamic markets, and not taking no for an answer, all these things that they tell you in entrepreneurship 101, right? But I feel like the emphasis on sales is often overlooked. I think a lot of times because it doesn't seem like a cool role. Like, I do marketing, I do strategy. I'm like, strategy? Who does that at a startup? You just sell, man. That's what you do. Like that. The strategy is to get into hyper growth mode. That's the strategy. Sorry. All right, let's move on. So, and so, but sales in the broader sense, not just of selling products.
Got it. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I enjoyed talking to you today. I'm going to need to get one of those back massagers, and a bike. And I have one last question. It's this: how can people find out more information about you, about what you do, about your products and services? How can they do that?
Yeah. So sorry, 1 second here. For the stuff that I'm working on, you can always check it out at alabaster.com, and so you can see all the different projects that the companies that I'm involved with, the ones that we've invested in. AREVO, AREVO.com is where the carbon fiber products are, and for impact, definitely check it out on Indiegogo. Just look for Pact, PACT, and there's all sorts of information about it. I mean, we just launched a couple weeks ago, and we're already almost 2 times the funding goal that we're at. So it's something that can be really useful, and I think especially if recovery and pain relief are things that are important for you. And so it's important for me personally. That's part of why I wanted to do this product. But yeah, so those are some of the links.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Jamil, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.